Welcome to the latest edition of the Shukri Wrights Podcast with your host, Shukri Wrights. Today, I am joined by now a colleague of mine for Causeway Crowd as part of FanSided, Bruins writer and contributor, Caylee Allard, who joins the podcast today. Good morning on this postmortem first weekend post Boston Bruins hockey. How are you doing?
Good morning. Thank you for having me and welcome to Causeway. I'm really excited that you're joining us. I'm
Thank you.
super excited to see that you joined. I was like, oh my gosh, we're just getting even bigger and better.
Yeah.
But yes, I am. I'm a little sad. It kind of doesn't feel real yet. Like I feel like I'm still supposed to watch them play tonight,
Mhm.
and I should have been watching Game 7 last night, but the Zoom that they did yesterday kind of made me feel a little better. I got some closure on like how they're all feeling about everything. So I'm feeling okay. I just kind of have to come to terms with it a little bit more. How about you?
I'm still in the grieving stages. Angry, although I allowed myself not to explode on Twitter emotionally. I am still very much disappointed. I have a lot of feelings about this that I will, in fact, not only navigate but also explore through this podcast. And I'm like annoyed with this team right now. And why do I choose annoyed? Because my number one sticking point, I want to start with this particular point, is Bruce Cassidy. I've really grown to really like Bruce Cassidy as a head coach, still do, although I am really upset over his decision to start Tuukka Rask in Game 6. You knew that this man was not healthy. He did not look well in Game 5. And I was at the game for Game 5. I watched him, especially in that first period where he did not look good moving post to post. But yet Bruce Cassidy decided that he was going to start Tuukka Rask in that crucial Game 6, which was the do or die game. Why on earth did you decide to start a guy that you knew was not well to prove a point to who? You can't let your decision be swayed based on the feelings of your locker room. There's got to be a limit. Yes, you take stock into what your locker room is telling you, but you don't let that determine your final decision. So, Caylee, I'll ask you, thoughts on the decision by Bruce Cassidy to start Tuukka Rask in that Game 6. Do you think it was the right or the wrong decision, and why?
So if anyone knows me, they know I'm the biggest Chuka fan ever.
Mm,
However, even trying to look at this from an unbiased standpoint, I still feel like it was the right decision because I do not think it would have been any different had Jeremy Swayman been in net. Now, if it was Halak, then I would have said start Halak. And I'm not saying Swayman's a bad goalie. I'm not saying he was not confident. I'm not saying I don't want him ever to play. I think he's great. I think he's the future. I think we're super lucky to have him as the next up and comer. But sometimes a goalie's mindset and experience can be everything. And while no, they did not win the game, I can't even imagine how Swayman would have done behind that atrocious defense.
yeah.
And the offense did not show up either. I mean, game 6, the only guy that shows up is Marchand to score 2 goals, and the
Hmm.
Islanders score 6. You do not win games that way. And I mean, I could be totally wrong. Maybe Swayman would have came in and got a shutout and forced a game 7. But looking at Bruce Cassidy's standpoint, I feel like if he started Swayman, he would be a laughing stock regardless. And he just has so little experience.
Yeah.
And I know Swayman has to get that experience, but he has to get it in the beginning of the season when the games aren't do or die. So
Mm.
that's the only reason why I was okay with Tuukka going in. I mean, he did not look good. He's hurt. He needs surgery. It's very unfortunate, but you're not going to go very far with an injured Tuukka, and you're not going to go very far with rookie Swayman either. So I feel like it was a lose-lose situation.
Here's the thing with Swayman, I wouldn't have expected for him to enter the game and suddenly be like, "Hey, he's here. He is. He's Marty Brodeur to the rescue." Like, no. But my issue is, and I'm going to take the unbiased approach as well. We know what the narrative is in Boston, especially for Bruin fans. Tuukka cannot come through when the team needs him the most. That's been the narrative about him for the last nearly a decade now. I could sit here and run through receipts. Like 2010, how did that work? Dud. 2013, Stanley Cup final. 2 goals in 17 seconds, dud. 2016, the last game of the regular season against Ottawa, you get sick, dud. 2019, I don't blame him. That 2019 Stanley Cup final was not on him. However, the rest of the team, dud. 2020 actually, can't skip that. You go to Toronto, you leave. You knew that there was something wrong. By reports have indicated that there was a situation going on with his kid before he left for the bubble, and you still chose to go to the bubble instead of staying back. So the criticism that came after was warranted. Sorry if it makes me look like a complete douche, but it was warranted in that regard. 2021, in this case, you're not 100%. Torn labrum. Okay, we knew that there was something wrong, but fans didn't know exactly what. And by and large part, on the morning of Game 6, fans were saying, well, they probably should not start Tuukka in this game. He does not look right. And I was echoing the same sentiments on Twitter. They still start him. So my response was, if Tuukka starts, I don't want to hear a thing about injuries. You're out there. You're expected to perform. Do you think it's fair for the Boston media, and you know how brutally harsh the Boston media can be, for them to coddle Tuukka Rask and kind of protect him in a sense from like the unwarranted criticism, and in this case, fair criticism that is sure to come his way this offseason as to whether the Bruins should move on from Tuukka Rask or not. Your thoughts?
So the media has always been way too overly harsh with him, just because I don't think people realize how lucky we are to have him. Like, yes, there have been some questionable incidents in the past where it's like, okay, are you really sick? Are you quitting on your team? Honestly, we'll never know. Like, no one's ever, Bergeron isn't going to come out and say, oh, by the way, Tuukka wasn't sick. He quit on us.
Exactly.
So it's like, I always use Tristan Jarry as an example on the Penguins. He is one of the worst goaltenders I have ever seen. And he truly is. If you watched him in the Islander series, he could not stop a beach ball. Like,
Yeah.
I like watching him, I was like, what is he doing? Like, this is like, Penguins fans cannot stand him. And that's their starter.
Remember Game 5 against the Islanders, that game-winning goal he allowed?
Yes. That's what I'm saying. How can I forget that? And I'm not even a Penguins fan.
I don't think anyone can, but well, please continue.
It's like ingrained in your brain. But like, when you look back on that, like, for me, like, there's no moments that Tuukka had really bad like upsets like that, except for maybe you can argue 2013, the 2 goals in 17 seconds, which again, you also have to look at the defense. No defense was able to stop. I forget who scored those 2 goals. I think it was Brian Bickle and someone else.
It was David Bolland. Oh, David Bolland as well. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember watching it back, and I think it was Andrew Ference and Chara, and you look at them and they're not even trying to get in front. They're like off to the side, they're chasing. It's like, okay, like Tuukka definitely should have had it, but so should, like, to me, the goaltender is like the last resort. Yes, they're supposed to be on it,
Yeah.
but the defense's job is to keep them from getting to the goalie easily, if that makes
Correct.
sense.
Mhm.
So I feel like you just have to break it down that way. And
Yeah.
I just feel it like we would not be where we are without Tuukka. Like, yes, we haven't won a cup in a decade. We won it with Tim Thomas. He put on one of the greatest performances anyone has ever seen in the
Mhm.
final, and I'll give it to him. But other than that, what did Tim Thomas really do for the team? Yes, he won that cup, but Tuukka has taken us there two more times. You know, I think the Bruins only missed the playoffs in 2015, was
15,
it?
15
Or
and 16. 20,
yes.
we could remember those two. Damn, Caylee. Damn. Like, you talk about pouring kerosene onto what I already feel sour as is, to now, and it was turning into a growing inferno. Like, now we have to relive what happened in 2014-15, in which that was the final season of Peter Chiarelli's tenure as GM. Screw him. I really want to curse him out right about now. In which that the Bruins, they were up. They had a playoff spot secured in March of that year, and they blew it. Literally
Mhm.
blew it down the stretch. 2015, 2016, same thing. Had a playoff spot secured in March, blew it down the stretch, played poorly. So those seasons were the byproduct of back-to-back league season collapses, in which the Bruins, I don't know, even if they made the playoffs, they would have been good enough to actually have done any sort of sustainable damage in the postseason. I don't know.
Yeah.
Woosa.
Deep breaths. It's all good. It's in the past. We can just let it go. Let it go.
It doesn't take much to ignite the fire of Bruin fans, but especially like
Yes.
where it's only what now almost 3 days removed
Mhm.
since the elimination, and I just, you ever wake up in the morning and you just feel like, what the hell do I do with myself today?
Oh,
What,
yeah. That's how I
like,
felt the day after. I
that's
didn't
how
wanna talk to anyone.
that's how I felt yesterday. That's how I felt this
Mm.
morning. I mean, don't get me
You
wrong.
chose violence.
I chose, well, so far I've chose peace, at least with you, because like,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. But gosh, Twitter pisses me off sometimes. I'm trying to maintain a level of composure, but damn, like, man, listen. I'm just gonna get this off my chest now. I swear to God, if Don Sweeney goes on and pulls some second tier trade that does very little to improve the team, I'm snapping. I'm collectively snapping as a whole. Like, if you thought that video that I did post game 5 was epic in its own right, I
Mhm.
swear the world hasn't seen anything yet. I I'm gonna go with Don Sweeney right now, because Don Sweeney has a massive offseason for the Boston
Mhm.
Bruins. They're at a crossroads. Rass is going to be an unrestricted free agent. So is David Krejci. So is Taylor Hall. I mean, and as well as Nick Ritchie. I believe he's going to be an RFA or UFA, but I don't remember which one specifically. So if you're Don Sweeney, and we all know that they need to seriously revamp this entire blue line, with the exception of Charlie McAvoy, and I'll even give Matt Grizzlick a pass, although he played like complete shit in game 6, being on the ice for 2 of those 4 goals that the Islanders scored 5-on-5. So
Mhm.
he's not escaping the wrath that's coming shortly. So my question to you is, if you are Don Sweeney, who are you looking to either sign or make a trade for, starting when free agency begins in mid-July?
So, like you said, I think the priorities are Krejci, hopefully, Taylor Hall, Tuukka. I know you're not his biggest fan, but
Don't hate him, but God, he makes me so angry.
I understand. I can respect it. At
Yeah.
least you're not a hater, a
No,
Tuca
no,
hater.
no.
There's a difference. You're just a critic. You just expect
Thank
a
you.
lot out of your
Yes.
team.
Thank you.
I
You
understand.
understand. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. And this is coming from the president of the Tuca fan club. So you're off the hook. You're off the hook.
Stop. Stop it.
I'm just saying. I'm just
Fair,
saying.
I'll give you that, but oh my god, oh my
All
god,
right,
oh my god,
we
oh my
won't
god.
get into Tuca
No, no, no,
anymore.
no, 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 no. It's my overall emotions. Is just talking about this team. Like it makes me so fired up. But I am so effing mad over the series. Like you're up 2-1. Like how did it fall apart so fast? Can someone explain to me what went wrong with this team? Like, is that hard? Is that hard to actually do? I'm not yelling at you, Caylee. Please do not take it as such.
I know.
I'm really not. But
So
I'm
let
getting
it
this
out.
off of
Let
my
it
chest.
out.
Like, why is this team out to play golf instead of playing in the semifinals? It's beyond me. Please, can someone explain that to me? I mean, gosh.
It's just embarrassing because, okay, like I said, Krejci, Hall, and Tuca
Yeah.
need to come back. That trifecta needs to stay.
Pretty please.
That is like the crucial move right now. But also, like you said, the defense, you cannot rely on just McAvoy
Yeah.
or Grizzlick. Carlo injured, Kevin Miller injured. Kevin Miller signing blows my mind and not in a good way. You sign a guy who
Thank you
is
for
made
having
of
some sense.
glass. He is made of glass. Great
Fiberglass.
guy, I'm sure.
Fiberglass.
Yes. Yes. He has glass for bones and paper skin. Like I'm sorry. It's true. Like I can't understand the logic. If you want all right, Kevin Miller is a big body. He's tough. He's not afraid to block shots at the blue line. He's not afraid to get in people's faces or get in front, whatever. I don't know what your feelings about this, but that's how Zdeno Chara was. Chara, he's old. Okay, yes.
But he was
Still,
durable.
thank
He
you.
was still durable. Like he goes to Washington and averages damn near 19 minutes per night, like as a third pairing defenseman. Like
Thank
for
you.
the Bruin fans who are another rant, Caylee. I'm sorry, but for you Bruin fans out there who wanted Chara gone, I got this message for you. You
Tell
got what
them.
you wanted, and guess what? Now that Carlo was injured, Kevin Miller was injured, and I go on to it and I say that you really could have used Chara in this series. Your response is, well, if both of those guys were healthy, we wouldn't have this conversation. Shut up. You hated on him because he was getting old, but yet turned out to be a still pretty serviceable defenseman, as we saw in this series against the Capitals. Like, get your head out of your ass. Like,
thank you.
Are we going to sit here and base his performance based on age? Like, are you kidding me? Like, gosh, like, oh my god.
We still would have had Chara and McAvoy playing on defense, and then we would have also had Grizzlick and Carlo. Those are arguably the top four in defense, right?
Right.
That's a solid freaking defense. Okay, like we didn't get any use out of Kevin Miller. I mean, it's not really the guy's fault, but Don Sweeney said, you know what? This guy's always injured. Let's sign him. And what happens in the playoffs? He's injured.
Again.
And you're relying on McAvoy can't do it all. Grizzly can't do it all. Like, yeah, you expect them to step up. And McAvoy, bless his heart, I absolutely love him. He should be a Norris finalist, but we won't even talk about that because that pissed me off too.
Oh, we're going to talk about it now that I know that.
Oh God, you're trying to get me going too.
Exactly.
I was all calm. I was all calm, and now
Caylee,
you got me like
I
fired up.
refuse to be alone in this dance. If we're gonna dance, we're gonna dance together, baby. Like, I'm sorry. Like, no, I'm gonna pull you along. And
no, I respect that because this needs to be talked about. Like,
yes.
That is the main thing that needs to be done this offseason. It just okay, not Jake DeBrusk, Torrey
Tory Crew,
Krug,
yeah. Mhm.
great defenseman, but he was more of an offensive defenseman. Like,
Mhm.
he was a goal scorer. Like, he was like Bobby Orr. Not saying he's as good as Bobby Orr, but he
Right.
was an offensive defenseman who, he was small, he's quick, he could score big goals. Like, that's great. But the Bruins needed bigger guys, solid guys. So yeah, you have Carlo, McAvoy, Grizz, like whatever. And then they really said, you know what, Chara, you're old. Even though you've been the captain for 15 years, we don't want you anymore. And we want to give the young guys a shot.
Mhm.
You don't give the young guys a shot when you're trying to win the cup, especially when Chara wants to stay for league minimum. He would have taken league minimum pay
Mhm.
just to stay in Boston. And they said, you can go. To your veteran captain of 15 years who played with a broken jaw. Make it make sense.
It doesn't make
See, now
sense.
I'm going off. Make it
Like,
make
like
sense.
I'm like, no, the floor is yours because it to me, even as of right now, you're gonna have Bruin fans that'll chirp on Twitter. They'll say, "But stop it! He need to move on. He's old." I'm sorry. Have you not been watching? And like, do you not understand the value that he has? And then the other part of it is this: I love Bergeron. Bergeron is forever the heart and soul of the Boston Bruins franchise. Period. But he's no Zdeno Chara in terms of leadership. There's a difference. In terms of leadership, I'm going to make this very clear for
That's
Bruin
a hot
fans.
take.
For Bruin fans, thank you. For Bruin fans who are going to be listening and watching this podcast come Monday morning, I need you to understand there's a difference in terms of the caliber of player between Chara and Bergeron, obviously, and then leadership between Chara and Bergeron. Again, this is not a slap in the face of Patrice Bergeron, but the difference is that you got to remember, especially for the Bruin fans who are old enough to remember this, when he came to Boston 15 years ago next month as a free agent, I remember him specifically asking to be the captain. He asked for the captaincy for a reason. Although the things didn't go well with the team, the first year, the 06-07 season was an absolute freaking disaster. I mean, don't even get me started on that. But you can see the leader that he became and how important his leadership was to the Stanley Cup 10 years ago. The Bruins don't win the Stanley Cup without his leadership. Rumor had it that it was him in game 3 after that first period of the finals against Vancouver, after Nathan Horton got laid out by Aaron Rome. He stood up and said, "We need to play like men. We need to get up, stand up, and play like men." And you saw the difference that the Bruins came out in that second period of that game 3. Leadership. The Bruins could have used that. They didn't have to put Chara as a top tier defenseman because you made a point earlier about Chara and McAvoy. Even if Chara came back, I would have said, listen, use him as a third pair defenseman, use him as a seventh pair defenseman. And I get that Chara is a prideful man, but he understands, but he has to also understand that you're all getting older. We still have a place for you on this team. And I wholeheartedly believe that Bruin fans are absolutely, and I mean absolutely, kings and queens of underappreciating players when you have them. And it makes me mad.
Yes, I I couldn't have said it any better myself. Like you said, Chara did not have to be a top guy. I think he wanted to. I think the rumor was that he didn't want to be bumped down, but something could have been worked out. I mean, he's a reasonable guy. He's a good guy. He loves Boston. I'm pretty sure his family still lives in Boston.
They do.
Like,
They live in North End. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's his home. His family's still there. And I mean, I know it's a business and you can't always be sentimental about it, but
Mhm.
how do you do that to your captain of 15 years?
Yeah.
And you know what also makes me laugh? You want to move forward with a young defenseman. Who's better to mentor them than Zdeno Chara, the
No
oldest
one.
defenseman on the team?
Mm-hmm.
He could have been there, just like Tuca is going to teach Swayman everything he has to know, just like Bergeron brings Pasta under his wing. You need Chara to sit there and say, "This is how it is. I'll help you. I'll guide you." He would have been a great, even if he's just a good locker room presence, that
Yes.
could make all the difference. And he, like you said, he's a leader. So who better to lead the young guys on defense than him? And they just threw it out the window. I feel like he could have been a huge difference maker this postseason
Yeah.
because everyone's focus is on the defense right now. I mean, we got our secondary scoring. We have Richie, Hall, Smith. That second line's great. Obviously, the first line's great. So, what do we need? We need defense, but we
Yeah.
said no. Bye, Chara.
But here's the thing. I think that third line needs a lot of work, and which is why I'm of the belief that the Boston Bruins, along after the blue line, that third line has got to be addressed. And Charlie Coyle scares me, and not in a good way, because that contract is not going to be looking good in another year, especially if he has another year that he had um like this past season. And the part that concerns me is we talk about the years, you talk about the average annual value on that contract, and I see someone who I was clamoring for after 2019, after the 2019 final, we should sign him to a multi-year contract. But this past season, he absolutely struggled. He was a shell of himself, and as well as Jake DeBrusk, because we're going to talk about Jake DeBrusk here. Jake DeBrusk has been, for me, a guy who has untapped potential, but it will never be realized here in Boston. Not with this team. I don't think at this point he is a good fit for this team, because the reality is that, and I've said this for 2 years about DeBrusk, he's too hot and cold for my liking. When he gets going, oh my God, he can score you like 7 goals in like 13 games and so forth, and like have like 15 points along those lines. But when he's cold, holy mackerel, this guy is like invisible. And he was invisible at times during this playoff series against the Islanders. And it's just like, where's the consistency? So my question to you is, how do you see the Jake DeBrusk situation playing out this offseason if you're the Boston Bruins?
Yes, I agree with you. I think he's the number one guy that everyone has their eyes on to get rid of. I mean, he's faced a lot of criticism as well, but rightfully so,
Yeah.
because I mean, when you're on that third line, like, okay, the Bruins finally got their top six, which is great. But
Mhm.
now we're looking at the bottom six who is suddenly not doing what they're supposed to do. So you have to turn towards the one guy who's kind of the culprit of all of that. It kind of reminds me of Anders Bjork.
Mhm.
He was kind of the same way. Like he was a great bottom six guy, but he was just never good enough. So that's where Taylor Hall came in. That's where that trade came in. So I think DeBrusque has to go. Like you said, I love him. I think he's, great guy. He's had some great goals, great moments, but you kind of have to let that go for the better of the team. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know where he would go. I don't know where he'd be a good fit really, or I don't know what his value would be because he's not doing great right now. But
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
really think I don't know who'd be willing to like jump to take him, but I think it's gonna start with DeBrusque and then kind of go from there. Like I think he's definitely gonna be the talking point this offseason.
This offseason, and this is going to be a wild one for the NHL, because remember how last summer there was talk about like, well, what's the salary cap going to look like? We know that it's going to be flat for at least another couple of years. That we know. So we know what's what. But in terms of the free agents, and then on top of that, the expansion draft. Welcome to the NHL's Seattle Kraken. Who would you like to take as your first pick? If you're the Bruins, of the guys that you may have available in terms of being exposed for the expansion draft, who are you looking to expose? And would you have DeBrusque as your number one guy as well?
I would say I would say Connor Clifton. Um, I heard that he just from like reading a couple articles and like speculation and stuff, I actually heard that he might be the number one guy
Wow.
to be taken. I mean, it's just kind of speculation, but
Yeah.
he's not protected. And I think he's been pretty disappointing as well. I mean, he's super inconsistent. I feel like he's almost always on the ice for one of the goals, like Grizzly was this past series.
Yeah.
He like and people always say Cliffy hockey. They call it Cliffy
Oh
hockey. Like
God.
you
I
never
hate that.
know you never know what you're going to get with him, and that's
Mhm.
like scary, especially when defense is a huge talking point right now. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't even mention Jake DeBrusk as like a Seattle guy. I would say probably Connor Clifton would be the one that I would say, okay, they can have him. So but yeah, what about you? Do you have a name that you'd like to see the Kraken snatch up?
Honestly, ooh, I mean, it would be tough, but um, but now that you're putting me on the spot, I guess I'm gonna have to go with wow. I'm thinking one of two people. I'm thinking Carson Coleman as one, and then the other one possibly, and I do mean possibly, Nick Ritchie. Like
Ooh.
Nick Ritchie, I think would be. I mean, yeah, he's gonna be a restricted free agent, but I think he would be someone who I think will be worth like exposing to the expansion draft and whatnot. But I do also wonder the following in terms of an earlier point that was discussed in terms of in terms of in terms of last offseason when Chara and Krug were allowed to walk in free agency. If you were to assess the team now in terms of which defenseman do the Bruins miss the most, which defenseman between Chara and Krug would you have picked? For me personally, it's Chara because I feel like Krug, yeah, as you mentioned, he is an offensive defenseman, but you could also get that same offense from Matt Grisick when he's not a -8 player, as compared to like Krug and so forth. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I would have kept Chara 100%. And Krug just wanted a lot of money too. I think,
Hmm.
oh gosh, I think he signed for 6 million was
Yeah,
his annual.
yeah,
If I'm remember, I'm just going off the top of my head.
yeah.
But I don't think the Bruins wanted to offer him that. So I think it was a money thing. And I get it. He's a young guy. He's kind of at like the peak of his career. He feels like he deserves that, and that's fine. But the
Hmm.
Bruins didn't want to give it to him, so I think Krug was more of like a money thing. Whereas Chara, the guy is older. Let's face it, and he didn't care about the money at all. So
Yeah.
it's like Krug, I was pretty devastated. I loved Krug. I mean, he had that relationship with Pasternak too. They were like best friends, and it like broke my heart when that relationship
Mm,
was split up. But again, not to be sentimental because it doesn't matter. But I was furious when they let Krug go because I was like, this guy can score, like he can hit, he can do it all. But now I realize it was definitely a blessing in disguise because we had room to, retain everyone else. And I really like McAvoy as the top guy. And I do like Grizzly, even though he's not perfect. But Chara literally said, guys, I will take peanuts to stay. And like we said, the veteran presence, the skill, the experience. He's a big guy. He gets in the
mhm.
dirty areas. So I would have 100% picked Chara over Krug any day.
I'm with you because again, as I mentioned earlier, like the leadership qualities, it's you can't replace that. Like Bergeron is an amazing leader himself, but I do believe that there's a different element when you are a captain. And I know this is a team that's full of leaders from Marchand to Bergie to Krejci, like that leadership group and so forth. But Chara was that guy. He was the presence in that locker room and on the ice that everyone in the league knew that is the guy that you have to answer to if you ever try to take a run at our top players. Now, sticking along that same train of thought, one of the problems that I've had with this team now for 2 years, I'm praying that this doesn't lead to another rant. This team is absolutely sackless. This team doesn't have any balls. It didn't show it. Listen, they showed me something else entirely in game 6 that made me so sick to my stomach that I think it's imperative that we need to have a talk about this, because Don Twiney, I get that you were a general manager of the year, but I'm asking you, for the love of all things that are good, take a good look at the last 2 or 3 teams that have won the Stanley Cup. Capitals, they have an element of toughness on their team, although Tom Wilson is a scumbag. 2019, the Blues literally gooned their way to a Stanley Cup, literally. So there's that. 2020, the Lightning, which right now, and this is probably not a hot take, but right now they are a team that I look at and I say they are someone that has a combination of skill and sheer physicality. Like, they can beat you either way. Oh, you want to play a physical game? No problem. We'll just punk you. I mean, there's a reason why they went out and they got someone like Patrick Maroon, a Stanley Cup champion with the 2019 Blues. And now 2021, the Blues are right now, they look like a team it can't be stopped, period. So if you're the Boston Bruins, how imperative do you think it is that this team returns back to that blueprint? Because after all, look at how we won 10 years ago. We had guys who were physical. You had Lucic, you had Sean Thornton, you had Chris Kelly. Like, you had guys that had no issue dropping the glove. And if I'm forgetting someone, then forgive me. But the point is, you had guys that absolutely were respected and feared on the ice. They don't have that anymore. So what do you think that it's a fair assessment to say that the Bruins need to go back in terms of revisiting the blueprint of what has made them so successful in the past? Because I feel like they've gotten away from that.
Yes, I agree with you 1,000,000%. You, I mean, this seems like an obvious statement, but a championship team has it all. You know, the 2011 Bruins, they had 4 rolling lines,
Mhm.
elite goaltending, tough guys, goal scorers, young guys, veteran guys. It was the perfect concoction, and that's how it is still. I mean, the Stanley Cup is arguably the hardest trophy to win in sports. Like,
Mhm.
you'll hear so many people say that, and that's why, because you have to have that perfect roster. And like you said, in 2011, I was going back through. They had Johnny Boychuk, Gregory Campbell, Chara, Andrew
Yes.
Ference, Nathan Horton, Chris Kelly, Lucic, Adam McQuaid, Paye, Peverly, Recchi,
The
and those are like the
names.
tough guys. Sean
Yeah.
Thornton, those are
Hmm.
like the big guys. Like, and like you said, if you hit us, we're gonna hit you back. That's how it was. And that's how it is. That's how it is with Tampa. That's how it was with the Blues. Like, you were scared of them because not only were they going to score more than you, but they were going to mess you up. They will drop the gloves with you. They will send you into the glass. Like, and I mean, not all of it was clean, let's be honest, but
Yeah.
but they still did what they need to do. So, and the Bruins literally used to be called the Big Bad Bruins, and they are not that anymore. And
At
I
all.
understand that the game is shying away from that. There's no more like Sean Thornton's really. There's no like major enforcers. I mean, like, I know Vegas has Ryan Reeves, and
Hmm.
I feel like every team does have their guy. And I know that the game is becoming younger and faster and not as tough anymore as it used to be. But you still need those tough guys because it's such a physical sport. You are not gonna like the Islanders even, they were not afraid, like, they were very physical.
Oh
I
yeah.
think they out hit us in most of the games, like, when they showed how many hit totals there were,
Yeah.
and that's just pathetic. Like, you are the Boston Bruins. You do not let anyone throw you around. So I think
Hmm.
that's another thing that needs to be addressed. And I don't know how Bruins fans would feel about this, but I think you actually were tweeting about it too. I think that Seth Jones would be a good pickup.
I tweeted this out, and there was someone was asking whether if he's a free agent or not. I'm like, listen, either way, get him on the roster because
I
this is
believe so.
because like I believe that he's a franchise defenseman. You add him
Yes.
to like a team like already has Chara as his franchise defenseman. You got a pretty good 1-2 punch right there. And then on top of that, like as you were pointing out about those guys on 2011, like Johnny Boychuk and so forth, like you need those type of players in order to win. Like you just can't win the cup just purely on finesse. Like this isn't like the back to back years that the Pittsburgh Penguins won the Stanley Cup where they had a ton of skill. Like they have some grit with guys like Matt Cullen and so forth, and as well as I believe I think Chris Versteeg was on that team as well, on those teams, or either one or two, if I'm not mistaken. But you need grit, you need skill. You had to have a balance of that, and I feel like the Bruins don't have enough grit. I get that they brought in like Jared Tenori to be that guy, but really, what the hell are we doing with Jared Tenori? He was a desperate waiver pickup. That's what he was. Like he was on his last legs with Nashville. He's brought here to do a job. He did it admirably, but he's not the guy that the Bruins need in order to win. And I just feel like if the Bruins are going to get back to bringing another Stanley Cup back to Boston before the guys get older, they have to return back to that blueprint somehow, some way.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I actually wanted to just ask your thoughts about
Yeah.
Sweeney. Do you think that he should either be fired or be on the hot seat depending on how the offseason goes? Or do you think that they should kind of hang on to him and give him another chance? Because I know a lot of people are already like, fire Sweeney.
You know, you could put this in the next article that you write. But which by the way, you can check out Caylee's work on Causeway Crowd. On that's the Bruins FanSided site. Um, I think Don Sweeney needs to be put on the hot seat because this is my reason why. You think that you would learn from 2019 in terms of you need to be physical in order to win. The roster at times has been severely mismanaged. And I'm going to give you actual examples. Like, listen, um, I just think that if you looked at this roster, you going, let's go a couple of years ago. Okay, you made the big trade for Charlie Collier. You trade away Ryan Donato in that deal. I'll give you that. And at the time when the night of that deal when it happened, I blasted the Bruins and I said, "What the hell are you doing trading away your future winger for a guy that has had a very okay career in Minnesota up until that point?" So I remember looking at this roster and I said, you know, what this team really needs is some umph, some physicality. They needed guys that could, step up and not be afraid to be that quote unquote guy that throw down. Like you saw that with the Islanders series with Matt Martin, for example. Like you saw that with the Capitals. You don't need a Tom Wilson scumbag type, but you need a guy that's not afraid to throw his size around. And to me, you don't have enough of that. And I think that as much as we give credit for Don Sweeney for signing David Pastrnak to a team friendly deal, and it's looking like it's more of a steal at this point for the price that he signed for. The reality is you don't have anyone to protect Pasternak. You don't have anyone to protect like the scorers on the team. Like you look at Tampa Bay, for example, they got guys like Stamkos, Kucherov. They listen. They have guys that complement those guys that can protect them. Victor Hedman is a monster on the ice. Pat Maroon. They have those guys. So I think that if I'm the Bruins, I'm honestly taking a very long and hard look at Don Sweeney this offseason and say, we need you to really make some serious changes with this roster and be brutally honest. This is not a roster that's good enough to win a cup. If you are still hanging on to the hope that this team can win a cup, we need you to make moves, plural, that's going to shake up this roster. Will it be painful? Sure. But I think it's imperative that the Bruins take that step because at this point, what they have has not worked for them the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And what's funny is before the trade deadline, everyone was already saying fire Sweeney because we were relying on the first line, had no secondary scoring, but then he acquired Taylor Hall. But you can't really praise Don Sweeney for that. Taylor Hall would have done anything to get out of Buffalo, okay? Like Sweeney just had to make the call and say, hey, you want to join us for the rest of the season? And Taylor Hall was like, hell yeah. So everyone, like, yeah, it's awesome that we got Hall. I want him to re-sign. He's absolutely, like, I want his jersey. He's amazing. But you can't really give all the credit to Sweeney for that because people quickly went from fire Sweeney to, oh my God, this guy's a god. We got Taylor Hall at such a steal, got rid of Bjork, and then Curtis Lazar for, I think it was like a second pick and Anders Bjork. Yeah. And then he got Mike Riley too. But, that Taylor Hall thing was such a big deal. But again, like, not that much effort or knowledge went into acquiring that, to making that trade or deal. So I don't know. I think that the Bruins do need a big change. Like you said, I mean, we failed in 2019 and now we fail again. So it's been super frustrating, especially stemming from the 2015 draft, which is also very frustrating. And I feel like it kind of just trickled. Oh God, I hit a nerve. I feel like it kind of just trickled from there and like it snowballed ever since that 2015 draft. And then, the Bruins haven't won since. So it's like you said, if you're not winning, you have to change something. And sometimes it has to be drastic.
Speaking of 2015, I tweeted a video yesterday on my Twitter. You can follow me at Shukri Wrights. Caylee, where could people follow you?
At Tukarask, number 2, Karask.
I tweeted out a video yesterday and I talked about the 2015 draft, and there was a few Bruin fans that were saying, you gotta move on. You gotta get over it. Every team misses on draft night. Are you ever kidding me? On 3 consecutive first-round picks. How do you miss on 3 consecutive first-round picks? How? Zach Senyshyn, you don't know what he's going to become. That's number 1. Jake DeBrusk. Bust! Let's call it for what it is. You sackless Bruin fans out there. He's a bust. And the fact that we're talking about getting rid of his ass tells me that he hasn't fully worked out here. So tell me.
Jake DeBust.
There you go.
That's a new nickname.
There you have it. There you have it. Jake the Bust. And as well as who else am I? I mentioned Zach Senyshyn, Jake DeBrusk, and Jacob Zaboral.
Yeah.
Zaboral.
I couldn't get his name out.
On 3 consecutive picks when you had Brock Bozer, Thomas Shabbat, you had Sebastian Aho, you also had Matt Barzal available in the draft, later in the draft. But some of you Bruin fans will say every team misses badly in the draft, but they drafted Charlie McAvoy. Like, that's the only saving grace from giving Don Sweeney. But other than that draft It's going to haunt this team for the next 10 years. All of what you need, you could have had if you drafted well. If you drafted well in 2015 in that draft, call me nuts. You wouldn't be in this position. You may not even have had to have gone out and get Taylor Hall. Maybe he would have been a third or fourth line winger, just because you already have goal scorers on those second and third lines. So spare me the nonsense, Bruin fans, and admit it. Don Sweeney fucked up big time, and there's that.
And we're still paying for it 6 years later.
Still paying for in every simple way. I'm sure you've heard enough of me yelling and getting my anger out.
No, I love the passion. I love it. Seriously.
Oh God, thank you for that. No, I'm just.
You gotta let it out. This is like therapy.
I mean,
right?
Caylee, you're not my therapist.
No, but you gotta project. You gotta just. This is your podcast. This is all you.
Damn it, man! Oh my God, yo. Oh my God, yo, you know what? Enough. You know what? Okay, you want me to vent? I'll vent. To you in the audience out there, they've been wondering, how am I really feeling about this playoff loss and how this team completely fell apart against the New York Islanders. Well, let me tell you how I honestly feel, how I really feel. Tuukka should not have played. I made that very clear at the beginning of this podcast. How I also feel is that this team didn't give a damn showing up in Game 6. Let's be honest. The only one who really showed up was Brad Marchand. And then as far as the second line, the third line, and the fourth line, they didn't do diddly squat in that game. And to me, for all you Chara haters, well, he's old. Well, he's getting too old. Listen, he's not the same defenseman that he was when he was 30. You get older, you're going to lose some of that skill. That is bound to happen. But goodness sakes, will you bring it to yourself and admit that you could have used him? I'm not trying to blow out your eardrum, so I'm sorry. If you need to adjust your volume level, please do so. But goodness sakes, please stop. Stop lying to yourselves. Get a hold of reality. This team is not as good as you think it is in hopes that it could win the Stanley Cup, which is why I think Don Sweeney needs to actually get his head out of his ass and wake up and realize that this team is getting to a point. Now, when you hear guys, I don't know if you caught this yesterday, Caylee, but Brad Marchand came out and said, was it yesterday? No, I think it was Thursday. But either way, he came out and said, we are getting a year older. How does that make you feel? And then, oh, by the way, here's the real kick to the gonads. Patrice Bergeron, when asked about his contract, because by the way, a year from now, Bergeron's a free agent. Guess what his response was? You can find that response on cbsboston.com. I'm taking my career year to year. How does that make you feel? Be honest. Does it make you feel scared? It should. This team is not getting any younger. How many times is Bruins management going to continue to completely give this team inadequate pieces to compete for a cup year in and year out? Which is why I tweeted out the other day that 2019 hurts even more, because it was the path of least resistance, and the cup was right there. And guess what? You didn't even choke in game 7. You didn't show up. That's what it was. That wasn't a choke. You didn't even show up. So therefore, time's ticking down, Tweeny. Make things happen. Stop giving people breadcrumbs. We're asking for the whole damn pie. Stop it. Let's get real.
Yes, I love that. You got me all fired up now.
I need to get it off my chest.
You said it all. No, I don't even have anything to say. You nailed it. For real.
I try.
That's how I feel too. It's frustrating.
I'm so mad. Like
it's very frustrating.
Seriously. Oh.
Especially 2019. 2019 hurt more than any other year. I don't care what anyone said. That was the year. Game 7 in Boston. You score one damn goal. Matt Grzelcyk scored the only freaking goal. Matt Grzelcyk.
And it was in garbage time. And it was in garbage time when the team was already up by 3 or 4 goals.
In the third period. Nobody scored until the third period at a home game.
I know, by the
with
way,
one of the best teams we've had.
And by the way, Brad Marshall with the ill-fated line change. I'll never forgive.
Yeah.
I'll never forgive him for that one. Oh no.
They just went full dummy and
literally. That's all there is. Anything you like to vent and get off your chest, because this is your chance.
Well, my frustration is obviously 2019 not showing up after having such a great year. And then 2020, last year, the Bruins were the best team in the league. They finished first place out of the entire league with 100 points. And then COVID happened. So they were not able to finish the season. So who knows? Maybe we would have won the cup last year. I mean, we have no clue.
We will never know.
Yeah. So the season, ended, and then it was the whole weird playoffs bubble situation. So that, what I should say is, if the season continued as normal, if it went through and COVID was non-existent, but we can't do anything about that. It's not the Bruins' fault, but it's just that frustration I have that 2019 and 2020, we were pretty much the best team and nothing. And then 2021, we seemingly, we still have the core. We make some good trade deadline pickups with Hall and whatnot. And then you choke in the second round. You breeze through the Capitals, no problem. Oh, this team, people were saying Bruins are going to win the cup. This team's serious after 5 games, that 5-game series, Capitals didn't even come close. And then you come out against the Islanders and look like you just roll over and died. So 3 years in a row, we've had this bullshit heartbreak because the team just doesn't have it. They don't have everything they need. So it's just constant. History repeats itself over and over. We haven't seen happiness in a decade, okay? And I'm getting tired of it. It's been a whole decade. We live off the 2011 team. Well, guess what? That was 10 years ago, okay? Nobody cares anymore. Nobody cares about, we'll always hold that dear to our heart. It was one of the best years of our lives. But we want more. We're not satisfied with one championship every 10, 15, 20 years. I don't want to be 50 by the next time this team wins the cup. I don't want to be a Maple Leafs fan. I don't want to suffer like them.
I mean, try being a Maple Leafs fan. 54 years. I mean, this is actually even longer than the Rangers cup drought that ended in 94. I mean, good God. Oh man. But how about the semifinals? Are you paying attention to the Stanley Cup semifinals at all? Montreal, Vegas, Tampa Bay, Islanders. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've been watching. I watched the Knights and Avalanche game the other night. It was a really good game. I'm honestly surprised the Avs didn't win it, but I have the Knights winning the cup in my bracket, so I'm kind of happy. So I pretty much got everything else wrong leading up to it, like all the other teams, but I have the Knights winning the cup, so I'll take it. But I don't want the Islanders to win, and I do not want Tampa to win. Unfortunately, one of them has to win this series. I think I would still root for the Islanders to win though, because if Tampa beats the Islanders, I think they could repeat. But if the Isles beat Tampa, I don't think there's any way they win the cup in the final. And I would love to see Islanders fans cry
Hmm.
and lose the Stanley Cup. I would take pure joy because their fans are such assholes.
Oh
I'm
yes.
sorry, but
Oh, don't
cheering when
apologize. Don't be
Carlo's
sorry.
down. Yeah, I'm not sorry. Okay. Fuck you guys for the cheering when Carlo got hurt,
Yeah.
cheering when Palmieri hit McAvoy and McAvoy's practically lifeless on the ground. And then
Mhm.
when he got up, they booed. Even Bruins fans, Boston fans, I'm not saying this is true, but people think Boston fans are such assholes. I don't think I've ever heard a Bruins crowd cheer when someone gets hurt or
No.
boo when they get up. They
Yeah.
stand up and cheer.
Yeah.
That's respect. You don't do that in any sport. Like, this isn't hockey, but when Dak Prescott got hurt last season,
Yeah.
I'm a Giants fan, but I hate the Cowboys. But let's just say
Yeah.
when Dak Prescott got hurt, I was like heartbroken for him. I was not cheering. So Islanders fans, you cheer when people get injured. Screw you. I hope you
Mhm.
get swept in the final. And I'm still rooting for the Islanders to win this round because I also hate Tampa and I think they're dirty cheaters. So I wish both teams could lose, but I have to want one to win. So I say go Islanders for this round, but I hope you cry in the final and I hope you lose. And I hope Vegas or whoever beats you. So I would even rather see Montreal win over Tampa or the Islanders right now.
It's crazy. I'm making this very clear. I'm not rooting for Montreal, but I actually do think Montreal could win the cup. I really do.
I think so.
Like, this is not about the team who it's not about the best team that wins the cup. As we've seen, it's not always the best team that wins the Stanley Cup. Especially you run into a hot goalie like Carey Price, like the way that he's been playing during these playoffs in the playoff series that's starting
I
up.
love Carey Price.
Like, Carey Price is so due. And I've always had this belief that if Canada is going to have its first Stanley Cup champion since 1993, it would have to be Montreal, because Montreal was the last team to win the cup, the last Canadian NHL team to win the cup. And how befitting would it be this year if it were to happen? Like, I mean, after all, like in Quebec, they're talking about increasing capacity crowd at Bell Center. So that's going to be really interesting. Right now they're at 2,500. They're talking about possibly increasing it. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. Like, I actually want to see that building full. Let's say if they were to get to the finals and they advance past Vegas, I want to see that building at least 65-70%, just to see how electric that is. I mean, you saw people literally dancing in the streets of Montreal when they advanced past Winnipeg in the second round. So I think Montreal, if they were to get to the finals, would be huge for the league.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's not much of a rivalry between the Bruins and Islanders anymore because they haven't faced them in the playoffs in a little while, and there was
Yeah.
nothing like that. I think it was like from maybe 2011 and 2014 is when the rivalry is super heated, but it's kind
Mhm.
of died down a bit. So they haven't been annoying me lately, so I can root for them. Um, but yeah, I think Carey Price deserves it. I mean, he's one of the best goaltenders of this generation. So if he could get it, I'd be really happy for him. And I also love Cole Caulfield, mostly because he's an American guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I would just kind of be happy for them and their fans. I hate to say it, but their fans do deserve it. So I think it would be interesting to watch. They're a very likable team. So Tampa and the Islanders are not likable. So
Oh gosh.
that it's
I
bad when a
I know.
Bruins fan
Mhm.
is saying Montreal is more likable than the Islanders or the
Which is
Lightning.
insane. It's like pick between the four options of poison would you like to drink from, and it's like the Habs, the damn Habs. But on that note, I want to say thank you immensely for coming on this edition of the Shukri Wrights Podcast. I feel like I've got more to vent out, but it's going to take a few days for me to really vent it out. But I'm going to take my sweet time to do that. But Caylee Allard, Causeway Crowd, fellow contributor and Boston Bruins writer for the site. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Seriously, you were amazing. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this was so much fun, and it was nice to just let our feelings out, and it's nice that we're on the same page of, with a lot of things. And again, I'm really happy you joined Causeway Crowd, so I can't wait to read your articles. And yeah, you're awesome. I had so much fun, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You got it.